So this week's The Questions Not Asked with Andy Dunlop and Ellen again. Thanks ever so much. Let's just drop the first one straight in there and see what people's thoughts are. Travel restrictions and the impact on musical tours at present. What are we finding? What are we seeing? What are our thoughts moving forward?
This is definitely one for Andy to start with.
Andy can start with this one.
I mean, it's a sore subject because, as I'd said, I was supposed to go on holiday on the 28th of October to America. So it is opening some wounds. But a lot of my friends are still in the touring industry. Seeing what they're going through and the uncertainties just now is really tough. It's almost an impossible scenario, and I think it goes deeper than, well, obviously it goes deeper than just the touring industries. And there has to be a worldwide consensus on how this is going to work. And trying to get a worldwide consensus on anything, if anything of the last 18 months has shown us, is impossible. It almost feels like we're just waiting on this to pass before things can actually get, until we can get touring again. We're currently trying to plan our 2022 schedule, and we have a lot of international artists, and the unknowns on that it's very difficult. And I think a lot of people who are reading these news headlines just see it as, oh, such and such an artist can't come over. But that's not just one artist. There's 150 crew that come along with them. There's a lot of livelihoods at risk when it comes to this. Now, we need a better solution right now, and we all need to agree on a solution to make this actually work. There's obviously other issues at play, not just with the pandemic, but Brexit and the costs. I'm seeing some people really struggling with touring in Europe and having to have carnies and things like that, just to go and do a short European tour, which previously would have been so straightforward. I really feel for those people that are kind of stuck still deep in that world, and their livelihoods depend on it.
And the emerging talent. You know, we're talking about the artists, and when everyone starts talking about artists, they think about those platinum selling artists that are coming first class, you know, and being dropped into a ready-made concert venue. You know, we're talking about the emerging talent that are still doing the gigs from club to club to club across Europe. You know,
in the back of a transit van.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, who will be the next platinum selling artist? You know, because we've seen evidence of it throughout history. But they all started on those smaller, you know, journeys, and we're going to potentially lose some of that.
Yeah, it's going to as well. You know, people going to see the concerts, or people going to festivals overseas and stuff. All that's going to stop. So it's going to have an impact, a long-ranged impact.
Yeah, we even saw that at Transmit Festival, where we had our entry requirements were all based on lateral flow, but then some of these foreign fans who are traveling from Spain and France and whatnot, they don't have the same testing systems that we do. So they're coming into a country, they're like, well, I don't know where I can get a test. The tests that I had when I left my own home country is not the one that fits your entry requirements. So there's a lot more knock-on effects. So yeah, the fans are definitely going to be impacted there.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Chaos ensues.
Okay, let's talk about another of the areas. Insurance, and people love talking about insurance, so we'll throw it onto the table in terms of, you know, where do we think we are, where do we think we're not experts in the field at all, but where have been the challenges that we've found across our three business areas? Ellen, do you want to start?
I don't know an awful lot about it. I know it's one of the things I suggested we talk about. But you know, recently when the government said, "Oh, we've got this great insurance scheme and it's going to solve all your problems," and it isn't as simple as that. I don't know the nitty-gritty and the details, but I know that, as with most things, it's far more complicated and complex. And yes, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not solving the problems. You know, on the coal face, Andy, what do you think?
Well, I mean, again, I suppose it goes back to what you were saying about that it's not just the platinum selling artists, it's everyone. And we're finding this with our small community events. And I'm seeing this across the country with other managers that I'm speaking to. Like, no one's willing to take the risk on those community events like your Christmas light switch-ons and stuff like that really make up these small towns. These are things that these people are look forward to every year, and they've done without it last year. They're not willing to take the risk without insurance, and the insurance that the government are putting out there isn't good enough for what it is they need. So all of these events are already falling by the wayside again. So we're going to be 3 years without events in some of these places. And yeah, the large scale insurance is not going to, it's not cutting it as it is just now. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not an insurance expert, but what they have at the moment is not helping.
Yeah. And I suppose to take that on in terms of from a business perspective as well is how we are all writing contracts now, you know, and the expectations of our clients on our own contracts in terms of what they're tied in for obvious reasons, you know, and that makes life difficult when you've got subcontractors coming in, you've outgoings going out, and the additional management or administration time that you're having to cost into some of that extra work. So we've been through other challenges over the past 20 years, you know, which have seen us all had to hold hands together and get through the other end. This is slightly different, but I could probably use the same analogy in terms of we are still going to all have to hold hands together, and those relationships that we've built over time will be tested. Yeah. But hopefully what they'll do is, if those good relationships will see us through the other side as well. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay, the third one. We're getting a bit low here, so I want to try and bring it back up and put a positive slant in terms of staffing. You know, and let's not talk about the difficulties we have in terms of the industry, in terms of finding staff at the minute. Let's talk about the opportunities that we have in terms of staffing at the minute. Where do you think the opportunities are for our industry from a staffing perspective at present? Who wants to start?
To bring new blood into the industry, this is the best time in the world to be new blood into this industry. And I think if you go back 2 years ago, probably one of the biggest complaints for people trying to break into this industry was getting that first foot in the door. And right now, everyone is so desperate for staff that you'll get that foot in the door if you're willing and able. And we brought in a few new faces to our team over the Transmit, and they've been brilliant. I just put 2 new vacancies live today. So there are lots of opportunities out there for good people who are willing to learn, willing to listen, and want to get into this industry. And there is no doubt it is a great industry to work in. So the opportunities to bring new blood in are phenomenal. And at the same, not to put a negative spin on it, but at the same time, a lot of blood that's maybe been there that has probably just been there because they've been the same people who have done the same thing over and over and over again for years and years. There's an opportunity to freshen that up. And I think we've already seen that happen, and some of those businesses have naturally fallen away, or some of those personnel have naturally fallen away. But there's an opportunity to change all of that. Sorry, my mic fell over there. Not being very professional here today.
Oh, we don't mind that. We're in the events, and it's the end of a day, and we're doing this recording for people to listen to. Ellen, what about you?
I think, yeah, you're right. Everyone's talking at the moment in hospitality and events about the staff shortages and the problems, but is every problem is an opportunity, isn't it? And there's openings there for people, and like you kind of alluded to on the podcast, go and volunteer for something, go and get a bit of experience, find out what you want, what you're interested in, and good things will come of that. There are so many paid jobs available, but there's also thousands of volunteering opportunities available. So now is the time, if you want to get into this industry, now is the time, seize that opportunity and go and just try something out. So yeah, I think you're right. It's encouraging, trying to encourage people to come along and have a go, and just making sure that they're aware that these opportunities do exist and what they could lead to. It's not just come and volunteer, we need some bar staff. It's, you know, what that can lead on to, and looking at listening to our podcast, finding out these people that have now got these great jobs that started out volunteering behind a bar. Look what you could become.
I think that the other thing that I've definitely seen is there's an opportunity here to innovate, and it's a time where we've in our industry we've maybe thrown people at it, whereas right now we maybe don't have the people, so we have to think of different ways to do certain things. And we've done it with a couple of very silly things at the festivals we've done recently. And previously we used to have this VIP resolution point, and this is a very silly example, but it was where we had a steward and a member of staff standing there, and if any customer had come through the general admission door and didn't have a VIP wristband, they would then be seen to by this steward and this member of staff, and they would have their ticket checked. It's a very tedious process and very annoying. We didn't have those extra members of staff this year. So we printed a big poster that said VIP resolution point and stuck a wireless doorbell to it. And that wireless doorbell rang inside the box office, which was behind a piece of steel shield, which was just a little bit further away. But it done the same job. And it cost us £25. But it was just these little bits of innovation of like, well, do we actually need this? Is there another way that we can solve this small problem? And it has caused us to do it. And I'm not trying to take jobs away from people, but if there's better ways to do things, this is a time that we are finding these out because we're kind of forced to be honest.
You're being forced to, yeah.
And we all like people. We work in this industry because we enjoy working with people, but technology is amongst us. And some of the younger, fresher faced people that are coming into our industry, whether we like it or not, are quite often more tech au fait than some of the older generation like myself in the industry, who asks my daughters when there's something coming through that I don't understand. So I think that's the other opportunity as well, in terms of not just managing down and managing up. And getting some of these new faces to help influence where we're taking events, so that the experiences aren't what we think is needed. The experiences are what people want. There's real opportunities moving forward in terms of, from a staffing perspective, to make sure your team fits the direction that we're all traveling.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic has taught us that we can use technology to do a lot of things, even meetings, and the impact that has on the costs and sustainability. All of a sudden, we don't need to fly all of our staff into the one site to have a planning meeting. We're all quite comfortable having that on Zoom, and then maybe just wait until we get on site, and that helps everyone. And it means that we can bring in those members of staff from all over the country rather than thinking, no, we need to keep this local. But yeah.
Right, final bit, just because I know our listeners will have wanted to know what everything was about on the podcast. So this skill that you have that people don't know about, Andy, do you want to share it again so people can see Ellen's reaction?
No, I'm looking away.
She doesn't want to watch. Well, whilst I'm going to do it, I'm going to show my my finger. I slammed my finger in a bit of steel shield lock. That's why event managers should never touch steel shield. That's why we have site crew.
Yeah, exactly. People experts for that job.
Yes. No, don't let me. So yes, we talked about my hidden talent, and that is that I'm double jointed. But my fingers are just very bendy, and my thumb is probably worse.
There we go. What better way to finish this little extra part of the podcast? To find out more about that, obviously listen to the podcast itself. Andy, thanks ever so much for your time, mate, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me.